Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
Welcome to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm Robert O'Haver, coming to you live from Orlando, Florida, with my co-host, Caleb McKelvin.
What's up, Rob? How
Not
you doing,
much,
man?
man.
Another awesome day in Orlando. Another awesome day to talk digital.
Hearing the temperatures up north, I'm like, God, I love Florida.
No, I don't like all that stuff. No, it's nice and sunny down here. We're really excited about the show today. Another episode of Search Talk Live. We got a lot going on. We have an awesome guest, and this is going to be a pretty great show.
Yeah, definitely. Now, those of you for tuning in for the first time at Search Talk Live here, we talk geek. Literally, geek. We talk about search engine optimization, search engine marketing, search engine, what is it? Optimization,
content marketing, social media.
We cover everything. Paid search, everything basically to do with digital marketing.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
You can call in during the show and ask our guest or us questions. Probably it's going to be our guest this time.
Yeah.
But the number here is 855-722-0006. I expect we're going to get a lot of calls, so if you're going to call in, you might be on hold for a little bit, but we will get to you.
Make sure you hit option 1 as well.
Yeah.
You'll be directed over to our man Dave, man in the phone lines, man in the show. Big shout out to Dave, always helping us out here at Search Talk Live. But yes, call in. You can also tweet at us at Search Talk Live. Get your questions in that way. Before we do kick off the show, shout out to Robert Palmer and the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com. Check that out. They do power Search Talk Live.
Yeah, and you can listen to the show every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
12:30 Pacific Time. I always mess that up.
I always mess that up. Oh, well. Let's get on to the show, man.
Yes. Our guest today is no other than the Webmaster Trends Analyst at Google.
Yes.
Calling in live from Zurich, Switzerland, is John Mueller of Google. John, how's it going?
Hi, great to be here. Going great here. Nice to be able to join you guys.
Yes, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. We know it's a little late on your end, but thank you so much for taking out of the time for us and our listeners.
Yes.
Glad to join you.
Yeah, so we want to dive right into this because we only got an hour and we got tons of questions here. Now, John, if you could give us a little bit of about your background, where you come from, when did you start with Google, that type of thing.
Okay, sure. So before joining Google, I had a small software company here in Switzerland. And at some point, I started working more on the websites, doing more web-related stuff. I created a sitemaps generator, one of the first sitemaps generators for Windows. And through various help forum connections, for example, I got in touch with people from Google and ended up starting there in 2007. So since then, it's been, I guess, a really exciting time. I've worked with a lot of different teams on the search side, from the sitemap side to various crawling and indexing teams, Search Console, Webmaster Tools, all of them, pretty much.
Wow. So you're passionate like we are.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Always spreading the knowledge, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you really have put yourself out there, and I can probably speak for everyone that, we appreciate it so much. Even when it's bad news, we you're there to tell us. So.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, let's get to some questions.
Yeah, do you want to start, or you want me to start?
Oh, go ahead, man. I know you got some good ones over there.
I'm going to get this one out of the way because I know what the answer is going to be. But do you have a ballpark estimate as when Penguin might be released?
I don't have any time frame for that at the moment. So that's something I know the team is working on that, but I don't know what the specific dates and times are there.
Yeah. Oh, come on. You can tell us. We're not going to tell anybody, I promise.
Yeah.
We had to get that one out there. I know that, we had to get that one out there. A lot of people wondering. So just so we can say to the listeners, we asked this question.
Yeah.
And you hear it from John.
Yeah.
We just don't know yet.
Now, in regards to hreflang, y'all sent out a lot of notifications saying that it was improperly implemented. What is the most thing that you're seeing as far as improper implementation? Because I actually got one of those myself.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the the tricky part with hreflang is it's kind of a signal for us that we use for understanding websites internationally.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you have two pages on your website. You say they're equivalent. One is in one language, another is in different language. It might also be the same language, just for different countries, for example.
Right.
And with hreflang, we'd be able to swap out those URLs and show the appropriate version to the user.
Okay.
And the tricky part there is that as a webmaster, that's sometimes hard to recognize. Is it working right? Is it not working right? So we see a lot of people implement this on their websites,
Mm-hmm.
but they implement it in the wrong way, and it doesn't end up working. But they don't realize that they have it wrong. So that's kind of why we started sending out these messages. I think we sent the first batch of messages out maybe a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
1.5 years ago, something like that. And we're trying out a different message format to kind of see how the reactions are there, to see if we can encourage people to kind of fix those issues, because they're already spending time putting this markup on their pages. They might as well make sure it actually works the way they want it to work.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, another question is, has Google ever thought about possibly turning the search results page into maybe an infinite scroll, or maybe increasing the number of results on one page because of, with the recent changes with the paid advertising? So they added another slot at the top, and then, you got your local search results that come in from Google My Business type of thing. So it's kind of eating up the space there on the organic search.
Yeah, I don't really know what the plans are around the paid side and around the local business part. So
Okay.
that's something that where we have a fairly strict separation between the organic search and the paid part of search. So I don't really know what's happening there specifically. I think infinite scroll would be awesome, because then everyone would be on page one, right?
Yeah.
So that would kind of solve
That
all
would be
ranking
great.
problems.
Right.
Like you're always on page one.
Right.
But I don't know from a usability point of view if that's
Yeah.
really the best solution,
Yeah.
because then it's hard to link to different parts of the search results. It's
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's really the right way to go. I think I've seen some blog posts that at some point we did experiments around infinite scroll in the search results.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a while back. I don't know what the current plans are there.
Yeah, maybe from a mobile standpoint, that would be an easier user experience. I don't know. Even if it was just to expand it a little bit more.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, the hard part is you kind of lose the footer elements, because you can't scroll to the bottom to
Yeah.
click on the about link or
point.
the feedback link. So that'd have to be, I guess, placed differently.
Yeah.
But I know the UX folks at Google are always busy. It's not like they launch something and then they go play games for a year. So I wouldn't be surprised if changes in the search results happen. I think that's kind of a constant development.
Yeah. Now, webmasters have noticed, and Jennifer Slegg had written on SEM post, about the 5-star review snippets.
Yeah.
They're kind of disappearing from SERPs on, half the appearances are missing. So, I mean, is there something going on there? Are they getting rid of that, or is it?
Yeah, I think she identified that it went from 34% down to 22% here recently.
I'm not aware of what specifically is happening there, but that's one of those elements where I know that the team is always working to try to find the right balance. Because if you show them on all results, then that kind of overpowers the search results page. If you show them on too few results, then you kind of lose track what this is supposed to highlight. So finding the right balance there with regards to how many search results have this shown is kind of hard.
Yeah.
With rich snippets in general, it's also a matter of us understanding that the quality of the website is high enough that we want to show the rich snippets. And sometimes what happens is we just reevaluate the quality of a bunch of websites, and then some will have stars new and some will kind of lose those stars. So that change kind of happens organically all the time. I'm not really surprised to see changes happening with regards to how we show the rich snippets.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the questions that I have, I know some of our listeners had as well, is AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. I didn't know if you could actually kind of speak to that on what it is and who it's going to impact in search results, and basically how it's going to impact search in itself.
So I guess there's a really big vision around AMP with regards to making the web better again.
Yeah.
In the sense that even when sites are mobile friendly from a layout point of view, they're not really friendly for mobile users. They take a long time to load. They have tons of embedded elements. And AMP is kind of an approach at kind of refining things and saying, well, you're interested in the content. Here's a website that essentially provides the content in a really fast way.
Yeah.
So from a technical point of view, what you have is your normal web page in general, and then you have an AMP version of that page, which is kind of a simplified HTML version that uses special elements in there where all of your content is visible, and that includes your ads if you have AMP compatible ads, analytics tracking if you have that there. You can implement paywalls as well if you're kind of a news provider and you're giving access to your content on a subscription basis, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially we take those two pages, and where we can, at the moment, that's just within a carousel on top where we show kind of newsy content. We'll swap out the URL that you'd usually have with the AMP version, and someone, when they click on it, they essentially have the content right away. And within the AMP content, you can swipe left and right to get to the other articles in that section there to kind of get all of that content fairly quickly. And the goal there is really that the easier it is to make your content accessible to the user, the more likely they'll actually go through and actually read that content and kind of look at more stuff on your website, look at more stuff in general.
Yeah. We actually did have a question kind of geared towards AMP, and it is a listener says, is it a fair assessment that for now AMP adoption is of limited value except to news media?
So we haven't officially launched AMP yet. So that's one part there.
Yeah.
I think the team is rolling this out, so it's probably going to be more visible over time.
Okay.
But at the moment, we're showing it for specifically within this kind of news carousel on top, and you can test that with the AMP demo that we have that's linked from our blog post to kind of see what that would look like. Knowing the teams behind it, I'd expect this kind of to expand step by step, but I'm not aware of specific plans for it actually to go forward.
Yeah, I believe they started rolling that out today because I'm seeing all kinds.
I saw some updates. I know it had
yeah,
for the 24th.
I saw a bunch of blog posts already.
Yeah.
So it's stuff is happening.
You're right. There's things in motion.
Yeah, I think from an SEO point of view, it's important to kind of understand how AMP works in general, in the sense that we're looking at the content. It's a different form of the page, so you kind of have to generate that second version of the page, which you could do with a plugin, and to kind of understand what kind of sites it might make sense to use with AMP, and what kind of sites where you're saying, well, probably this is too tricky to implement with AMP.
Yeah.
So any kind of content site, that's something where AMP would be a great match, where even people could take their existing website and say, I'm doing a pure AMP site. Probably a bit early for that, but theoretically you could do that.
Yeah.
For other kind of content that's more dynamic, so I don't know, let's say in extreme case you have a drawing website where people can take images and they can draw on them, then that's probably not something that's going to be suitable for AMP in the short term.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think from an SEO point of view, it's important to understand what's actually happening there, so that when clients come to you, you can say, well, maybe it's suitable for you, maybe not, or it's definitely not suitable for you, or it's definitely suitable for you.
Yeah.
So that you can kind of be that expert and guide them towards doing this yes or doing this no.
Right.
Okay. So here's another question towards that same subject with AMP. Now, would you recommend a site that has a fast load time? Their content, I mean, the layout, everything is great, say responsive. Would you recommend, I mean, if everything is going good with that site, to go to AMP? I mean, what is the benefit there? Maybe.
So there are two advantages with AMP in general. On the one hand, we'd be able to show this content in that carousel on the top of the search results. So that's kind of a quick win in that your visibility is kind of increased there because you're shown in this specific part of the search results.
Right.
The other thing with AMP is also that it includes a kind of a cache in the sense that any service that consumes AMP can cache this content as well on their side. So if you have content on your website and your server isn't really that strong and suddenly that becomes really popular and is shown a lot in the search results, then we'll show it from the AMP cache instead of from your website directly. So your server essentially has a much lower load. So that's something where might make sense to kind of do it from that point of view if you assume that this could happen. Obviously, if you know that your server's load is going to go up and it's going to become really popular, then you're probably going to prepare in other ways as well.
Gotcha.
Very nice. If you're just tuning in, you are, of course, listening to Search Talk Live with hosts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin. We are powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com, check out everything they have going on. A lot of cool stuff. Yes, we are with our special guest, John Mueller. If you'd like to call in and ask questions, you can do so at 855-722-0006. That is 855-722-0006. Option 1, you'll be connected to our man Dave, and we'll get you on air to ask your questions, or you can tweet at us at Search Talk Live.
Okay, now back to the questions,
Yes.
John. Here's a simple one. Is there any plans for Google Trends to have an API?
I don't know. So recently I played with Google Trends. I made a small Raspberry Pi watch, and I imported lots of Google Trends data there, and I thought that kind of worked. So I believe there's like an RSS feed or something that you can get for some of those topics that you can just reuse like that. So I don't know if there's actually plans for an API. I don't work with the Trends team, so this is just from anecdotal messing around with something based on the public documentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Very nice.
Now, here's a question that has been asked at least 6 times, so I figured, hey, it's important. Let's ask. Will Google ever provide more than 90 days in the Search Console data? Now, you've got to know that one.
Since the question is like ever, that means I don't have any time deadline.
Sometime in the future.
I'd assume that will happen at some point. I know the team is working on kind of understanding the needs of webmasters in that regard. I know for other types of data within Search Console, we do show more than 90 days. So information like on the crawl stats, the index stats, for all of those, we do show, I think, a year or even longer.
Yeah.
With regards specifically to search analytics, which everyone is kind of keen on, like the ranking, the clicks and impressions data, that's something I know has been a topic with the team for quite some time, where we always go back and say, hey, everyone wants this feature to have more data. Can you do it? And then they come back and say, well, I don't know, it's complicated, or how should we balance like more days in search analytics with adding a different feature to Search Console? Like which one should we do, John? So that's something where there are always discussions happening. I wouldn't be surprised if we had more data there, but I really don't want to make any promises because that's always, a direction for unhappiness if you make promises about something that you don't really know about.
Right. I know it's been asked in the past, and they're like, maybe it's this year, maybe. So,
I know Zineb is looking for feedback on that. Specifically, she was looking for that on Twitter. So check that out. I think I retweeted it at some point as well, maybe last week. So that's something where if you have really strong feelings one way or the other, and I imagine it's only going to be towards like more data, I definitely let her know about that.
Okay.
Very good. Very good. Yes. This actually, we read up a little bit on this. This actually was a common question that we have. Does linking out to other sites from your site have any effect on your organic results or boosting your site or building its authority? Is there any kind of positive or negative effect, and who should you be linking to?
This is kind of an evergreen question almost.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah, comes up all the time.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of going back maybe, I don't know, 10 years or so, it used to be a really popular way for spammy websites to say, look, I'm a very serious website. Check out all of these serious links on the bottom. And by the way, buy all my affiliate products. So they'd link to Yahoo, Google, CNN, Disney, and everything and say, look, I'm a serious website. I have all these serious links on there. But the content would be like really spammy.
Yeah.
So that's something where you're not really going to compensate any low-quality website by having a couple of high-quality-ish links. And from our point of view, it's not something that we'd generally directly take into account when it comes to ranking, but there's probably kind of this indirect effect of you're providing something of value with those links.
Yeah.
These are things where people find additional information. They find your website valuable because you're providing this information.
Yeah.
And indirectly through that, they might say, well, this is a good website as well because it gives me all of this valuable information that I care about.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that our algorithms would go and say, oh, this website is linking to Wikipedia, therefore they must be serious. It's more that indirectly we're seeing a lot of signals saying, well, users really like this website, they recommend this website, and we don't really know why they recommend this website, but it must be doing something right.
Yeah.
So we'd kind of pick it up on that side.
Yeah. So in a sense, I mean, if you're going to link out to somebody, one, it needs to make sense. It needs to be relevant to the content that it's in, and it needs to be valuable for the reader, basically.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's a question that it's kind of, I haven't heard this one before, but do you think that Search Console will ever show a sort of site score system, almost like what Penguin or Panda does when they rank a site, to kind of say, okay, well, you can improve on this, maybe the content or your images or, that type of thing?
It's hard to say. So again, this is kind of the ever question, means I don't really have a deadline, but we also bring this up with the team from time to time. We bring it up with the engineers as well.
Yeah.
And one tricky aspect there is that we probably wouldn't use something that's directly tied to our algorithms for a feature like this, because our algorithms are more tuned towards making the search results relevant than to provide feedback for the webmaster. Yeah. If our algorithms were kind of more tied to providing feedback for the webmaster, then of course having some kind of a scale or red light, green light thing, that might help. But since they're essentially trying to provide relevance in the search results, they're not really suitable for that. So it's almost like the relevance scale that we would show in Search Console would be your ranking, because you're ranking where we think you're relevant, therefore that's kind of your relevance score.
Right.
But that doesn't really provide any additional value. So from that point of view, it probably wouldn't make sense to take one of the outputs of our algorithms and show that in Search Console. And at the same time, if we invented a new kind of way of recognizing how well your website is doing, then that's probably something we try to use as an algorithm instead of providing it just as an artificial metric for the webmaster.
Yeah.
But maybe there are things that somehow in between there that we could show a little bit more information on. Maybe ideas about where you could be ranking if you improve this part of your content, those kind of things.
Yeah. Okay. Caleb, you got questions?
Yeah, I do. Yes. We have another one from a listener. When should you consider disavowing links?
When to disavow links? So in general, my recommendation there is not to go overboard in like looking for links to disavow, but if you do run across something that you say, oh, you really don't want to be associated with this, then might as well go ahead and disavow that. So even if it's something where you'd say, well, Google probably has this figured out and knows that I don't want to be associated with this, or this looks really spammy, and obviously Google's not going to count this at all. But if you're the webmaster and you run across something like that, then by disavowing it, you're making sure that it's not going to be taken into account.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't disavow it and you know that it's out there, then you're always kind of like losing sleep and wondering, oh, is Google counting this against my website or not?
Right.
So you kind of like try to be on the safer side there by just saying, well, okay, well, I'll just disavow it, and it doesn't matter to me how Google's algorithms look at it because it's not going to be taken into account.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to be there like checking your links every day and saying, oh, I found another bad link, I have to disavow this really quickly, because then you're losing all this time on something that we're probably not taking into account anyway, and you could be using that time to actually make a much better website instead.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this question comes from, I already know what your answer is going to be on this, but for the sake of the listeners, I have to ask it. In the last couple days, we've had all this news about, with the paid search results changing, where they got the ads off the right-hand side, and now there's 4 on top and 3 on the bottom. They want to know if there's, what's Google doing there? So to speak.
What's behind the madness?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we have a really strong separation between the paid and the organic side of search. So I don't really have any insight into what specifically they're planning or they're doing there. From my point of view, as long as we keep something stable, then it's almost like we're not innovating, or we're not trying new things. We're not seeing how changes in the search results might affect the user. So I'm kind of happy to see them try something where even when you read the blogs, it's like, oh, Google is going crazy and this doesn't make any sense, or it does make a lot of sense, or maybe it's like this, or maybe it's like that. But those are the kind of things where I'm kind of happy to see teams within Google say, okay, I'll step out of my comfort zone. I'll try a few things out and see how they work out. And maybe it'll turn out and say, well, this was a really bad idea. We have to roll this back. Maybe we have to roll it back quickly. Maybe we recognize that after a month or after a year, but maybe we recognize this actually makes sense. If we tweak the parameters properly, if we show the right search results, the right ads in some cases to users, that they actually get a better answer, that they're more satisfied with our service, then maybe that makes sense. So I'm kind of happy to see people try some crazy things out and see how they work out. I don't know what the thoughts are behind that or what the plan is there, but it's always good to see that the teams haven't fallen asleep or haven't kind of taken a step back and said, oh, well, everything is working fine, I can just play pool all day.
Yeah. So it's not something where the paid side said, hey, organic side, we've got this whole right side for you now if you want to do something with it.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes that opens things up. There are probably discussions on a higher level with regards to which parts are available where.
Gotcha.
Sometimes it's just usability issues. Sometimes it's making things more consistent. I really don't know what the overall plans are there. But as long as we're making changes, I think that's kind of a good situation to be in.
Okay.
Very good. Yes, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Search Talk Live with your hosts, Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin. We do have our special guest, Mr. John Mueller, answering awesome questions today. We really appreciate his time. We are powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com, check out all the things they have going on. If you'd like to call into the show with your questions, please do so at 855-722-0006, 855-722-0006, option 1, and get your questions in or tweet at us at Search Talk Live.
Come on, call in. It's a rare opportunity for you to ask John Mueller a question.
Awesome questions. Very good.
All right, so on to the next questions. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm ran out.
I know we have a lot of ones with links. People really, really want to know what's going on with the links and how it's going to help their site. And I know you answer a lot of these, John, but just kind of entertain the listeners because we do have a lot of the same ones. So, does more than one link coming from the same authoritative site, does it help you, hurt you, or does it even matter?
Let's see. I can see situations where sometimes it makes sense to have like multiple links from the same site, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So let's, I don't know, take an example where you're featured in the CNN news once and you're featured there again a year later. Those are two links from CNN. Should they be counted as one link, or should those be two separate links?
Yeah.
Probably two separate links. On the other hand, maybe you're just like a site-wide link on some other website, and that link is in the footer somewhere, and you're essentially being linked from all pages. So you have hundreds of thousands of links from that site.
Right.
How should that be counted? Is that like hundreds of thousands of individual links, or is that more like kind of like one link? So that's something where I think our algorithms try to differentiate and try to understand what actually is happening there. And based on that, they try to figure out how much weight should this link have. Are the anchor texts relevant here? Do they give us additional information about those pages, for example?
Yeah.
So it would be easier to say it's always like this or it's always like that. But in practice, we have to be kind of we have to differentiate a little bit more when it comes to search results.
Yeah.
So coming from maybe a post as opposed to a link in the footer, obviously it's going to be different.
I think that's definitely a difference. So in general, when we look at web pages, we try to understand where the primary content is on a page, and we try to understand what the boilerplate is of a page. So
Gotcha.
the boilerplate is essentially everything that's repeated across the website, maybe twice, maybe on all pages, usually something like the header on top, maybe a sidebar, a menu, a footer, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And by understanding the difference between the primary content and the boilerplate, it's a lot easier for us to understand how these pages are relevant for specific search queries. So we can tell that if someone is searching specifically for something within the primary content, then we can focus on that and use that for ranking. Whereas if someone is searching generically for something that's listed in the footer, maybe like about this company, then maybe we can just take the home page or one of the pages that has this element on it instead of showing all of the pages in the search results. So that's something that I think SEOs kind of intuitively understand when they look at websites, but it's kind of a neat thing from a technical point of view to think about as well. Like how would a web search engine recognize the primary content of my page? Am I like clearly differentiating between the boilerplate part and the primary content, or is it harder for search engines to understand that difference?
Yeah.
Okay. And here's a rare question I haven't heard in a while. Should content sites still use distribution services like FeedBurner to distribute their content? And is there anything that can affect the site negatively for using these services?
So FeedBurner, I'm not actually sure how you would use FeedBurner at the moment.
Okay.
I thought that was more with regards to kind of marking up the RSS feed and if it's shown in RSS readers. So maybe I missed some things there. But in general, with regards to syndicating content, if you want to take it on a more general level rather than focusing just on FeedBurner, that's something where you kind of have to figure this out yourself. On the one hand, syndication lets you reach a bigger audience potentially. On the other hand, you're kind of diluting your content because suddenly all of these other sites have the same content as you have as well, right. And they could potentially be ranking for these kind of queries as well. So you might be getting people to your content, but they might not be going to your website. So that's something where you kind of have to balance between spreading the word a little bit broader and actually attracting people to your website, to kind of your brand, your business, what you're actually trying to provide on the web. And sometimes it makes sense to just get information out there in a broader way. Sometimes it makes sense to kind of attract people to your part of the web rather than just giving information out broadly.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, that's good.
You got another question? I mean, I have a couple more, but
yeah, let's see here. Well, this is kind of a general one that we fear, but no follow links. Is there any impact, and what kind? And should they be included in your backlink profile?
Let's see. So we do include no-follow links in Search Console when it comes to links to your site.
Yeah.
That's primarily because these are ways that people can reach your content as well.
Yeah.
With regards to kind of spreading signals from your website or to your website, we don't take no-follow links into account at all for forwarding PageRank. So that's something where that link is available for people to click on to kind of reach your site or to go from your site, but it doesn't pass any PageRank, which means it's fully suitable, for example, for advertising, for placing a link on someone else's website in exchange for something else. You can get traffic that way if that's what your goal is, but you wouldn't get any PageRank from that, and that's essentially in line with our recommendations. So one thing that sometimes comes up is like, is it true that no follow links don't forward any PageRank? And from our point of view, that's correct. They really don't forward any PageRank. It's not that they're like taken into account like 0.1% or something like that. We essentially drop them completely from our link graph.
Gotcha.
Wow. Okay. Kind of indirectly it does, right? I mean, because if it brings more traffic to your site, that
it has its benefits.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on your website. Obviously, if you're
Sure.
providing something really valuable, people come to your website and they think this is a fantastic site, I'll recommend it to my friends, then that does kind of get picked up indirectly.
Right.
But it's still something where you have to provide that value on your website. It's not like someone sees an ad that they don't like and they never click on it, therefore they never understand what's on your site, or they click on the ad and they come to your site and say, oh, this is a terrible website, I'm not coming back here again. You really kind of have to follow up on kind of that promise that you're almost providing in that ad, or however that link is happening.
Okay. And here's an evergreen question I've heard a million times. Can you explain why it's a good idea for a non-e-commerce site to implement SSL on their site?
Okay. So I guess, first of all, from a slightly pedantic point of view, SSL is the older algorithm for encryption, and TLS is the one that's been in place for the last couple of years. So that's kind of taken out of on the side. So if you're using HTTPS on your website, you're using TLS, not SSL anymore. With regards to HTTPS in general, it essentially has three aspects that are relevant, which might be relevant for general websites as well. On the one hand, there's kind of this authentication that you know you're talking to the right site. On the other hand, people can't modify the content that's sent across the wire. And third is the one that's usually taken into account for e-commerce, is that people can't kind of monitor what's happening there. So an ISP can't listen to your credit card number being passed along to a website, for example, or your email address, those kind of things. But I think, especially with regards to normal websites, the protection against your content being modified is also really valuable. So we sometimes see that in, for example, if you're going to like a free Wi-Fi spot at some coffee shop or at an airport, sometimes you'll see the wireless network actually inject ads into your content. Mm-hmm. So you might be going to your website, for example, and suddenly there's this third-party ad that's injected into your content where you're saying, well, this is not on my website. This is not something I'm being paid for. It's an ad for someone else's site, and maybe it's an ad that doesn't even match what you want to provide on your website. So that's something where essentially anyone along the line between your server and the final user would have the ability to change the content there, also to add tracking information. So that's something that I think is really valuable for any website, not just for e-commerce.
Right. Okay. Sorry to keep just firing these things at you, but I just want to make sure we get through them all.
Yeah, that's great.
Here's a question. What plans are in place for revealing streaming media in search?
Streaming media. I don't know of anything specific happening there. I've seen YouTube do more with regards to kind of like live streaming, but I don't know how that would be surfaced in the search results.
Yeah, it says to mention quality deserves freshness. This would be a quality demands immediate.
I don't know. I can think of things that might be possible, but I really don't know of specific plans there. Okay. That's usually also something that's worked on more with like the YouTube team, maybe the image search, video search teams to try to figure out how that kind of content can be shown more in the search results. But it's really tricky even with generic video content to kind of just based on the video content itself, understand what this is relevant for. And if you're doing this on a live level where, I don't know, there's maybe a discussion happening on a YouTube channel somewhere, and understanding where this would be relevant for is really hard.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm sure people are working on finding ways to kind of bubble that kind of information up better, but that's not that trivial.
Yeah. So 10 years from now is what you're saying, right? No, just kidding.
I don't know. When I look at what the various teams at Google are doing, I might say, oh yeah, in 10 years this is definitely possible, and they're probably like giggling in the background saying, yeah, we already do that, and maybe next month we'll launch. It's sometimes really fascinating how you get a bunch of really smart people together and they do stuff that you don't really expect to actually work out or to lead to something that can be launched.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me ask you, is there anything that we can say, you heard it here first on Search Talk Live?
Ooh, I like that one.
That you can share with us? Come on, John.
I'm not aware of anything specific that we can like pre-announce here. That's really hard.
Even
I don't
if
know.
It's small, it could be like we're changing our logo tomorrow.
Yeah. I knew he was going to hold out.
I don't know. I'd have to kind of think a little bit more.
Okay.
What all has been changing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have anything really interesting that I can pre-announce here.
Okay. The number to call in if you have a question is 855-722-0006. Those of you just tuning in to Search Talk Live, we are talking with John Mueller, Webmaster Trends Analyst of Google.
Yes.
Hey, there was one question I wanted to ask you. Are you going to change your title to Search Console? Just kidding.
Search Console. Yeah.
Analyst.
Search Console Analyst.
So I guess the title change was an interesting move in the sense that we've just noticed that over the years the term webmaster has kind of almost lost in relevance with regards to what people are actually doing. So it's not so much the case anymore that there's one person who's writing the HTML code, who's doing the SEO, who's kind of doing everything with regards to the website.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of teamwork now, and it's really hard to say, well, we're targeting this tool for this specific person, when actually we're targeting the tool for a fairly broad audience, and they don't self-identify as webmasters. There might be SEOs, they might be doing digital marketing or traffic acquisition or whatever. And essentially this tool is meant to kind of make it easier for people to do the right thing in search. Yeah. So that's kind of why we went with a name like Search Console instead of keeping Webmaster Tools specifically, because it is a bit broader. And with that change, we also started doing more with regards to app indexing, where we're working with app developers who are providing something that's shown in search.
Mm-hmm.
So there are definitely people who would say, well, I have no idea who our webmaster is. I do the app development.
Right.
And we need to be able to talk with those as well. So I don't know, from my title with regards to webmaster trends analyst, that's obviously tricky as well. We decided as a team not to do a big name change there just yet. I don't know. I expect kind of the role to evolve over time anyway, like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it'll have a different title at some point. I don't know. There's also the Webmaster Central blog, which might also at some point say, well, Webmaster is an audience we worked with a long time, but actually we're trying to talk with a broader group of people now. Maybe we have to, I don't know, call ourselves something slightly different. But that's also really hard to come up with a name that kind of talks about the audience that you're talking to, because search is just so broad in the meantime, and everyone goes to search and does something, but is that really kind of like a content provider or someone who's working to get their stuff shown in search?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Caleb, you got something?
I'm trying to look through here. I think we've gone through a lot. There's some that are kind of repetitive.
Flew through them, yeah.
So,
is there can you run us through like your what you do every day on Google at Google?
I open my inbox and I read my emails and I answer a lot of them.
Spend a lot of time doing Hangouts and stuff.
Yeah, we do a bunch of these Hangouts. So I guess from a practical point of view, we work a lot with various teams on the search side,
Mm-hmm.
which could be teams that are doing features in search, could be Search Console. We spend a lot of time, especially with these teams, to make sure that the tone is kind of consistent. Also that the information that we provide is kind of consistent and that we don't confuse people by saying this here and something completely different somewhere else. That it all kinds of lines up and make sure that people understand what we're talking about, that they're able to kind of build on the existing content and go from there. So that includes a lot of emails. Let's see, a lot of the documentation stuff are things that we work on. The Hangouts, definitely. The help forums, we're active there. We also work together with a bigger team in Dublin that's doing a lot of the international help forums and a lot of the international kind of webmaster relations outreach type things. So if someone comes in speaking Dutch and has an issue with their website, then usually there's someone who can help to figure out what's kind of happening there, to kind of escalate any issues that might be coming up that might be specific to that country there. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I didn't expect so much when I started at Google, but there's really quite a difference between what individual countries and languages look at when it comes to SEO, when it comes to search, where sometimes you'd think it could be simplified in, well, there are different levels and they'll all reach this level at some point, but they're really completely different tactics almost that are active in some of these individual countries. So for some of them, for example, we'll see a lot of link spam. In other countries, we won't see any link spam at all, but they're doing keyword stuffing like crazy, or buying expired domains, or just technically doing really fancy things that we aren't prepared for yet. So it's really very different across the different languages and countries almost.
Gotcha. Well, we actually have a question, don't we, Rob?
Yeah, we have a caller. Jeannie?
Jeannie Hill.
Jeannie, how are you today?
Hey, thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks for calling into the show.
Yeah.
You have a question for John Mueller?
Yes, I do. John, we started this conversation today where you referenced that you kind of got started in all this when you put together a generator for sitemaps. So just would like to ask you, there's so many changes, be it in the Search Console or AdWords or AMP. Where do you see the sitemap playing a role, or will it remain unaffected as we go forward with all these changes?
Good question.
Yeah, great question. So I actually see sitemaps as just as relevant as in the beginning. So it's something where usually you'd want your content management system to create these sitemaps for you automatically so you don't have to do it manually. But we do definitely take those into account. We use the metadata within the sitemap to better understand your pages. And that starts at understanding when these pages change. So if you have a bigger website and you change 5 lower level pages, then crawling that would take a lot of time for us to figure that out. But if you have that in your sitemap file, then we'd know, oh, these specific pages just changed, and we can pick that up a lot faster. And that's definitely relevant for everything that's kind of newsworthy, that's focused on newer content on your website. So specifically around AMP, where we do try to pick up newer content quickly. Another interesting part about sitemaps is you can actually give us more metadata within the sitemap file as well. So if you have an international website, if you can't modify your website directly, you can give us a lot of that information in the sitemap file as well. So if you work at a larger company that has this big marketing department that says, well, if you make any change in my HTML headers, that's going to take 6 months of approvals for that to kind of go through, and you really want to implement hreflang markup, for example, or something else, then you can kind of hide that in the sitemap file. We'll still pick it up. We'll be able to use that information, but you don't have to manually change the web pages themselves. So that's something that, from my point of view, is a really neat technical tool that still has a lot of value today.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Did
Awesome
that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you for calling the show.
Currently, your sitemap hasn't been generated in some time. Is there currently a sitemap generator that you say would help us add better metadata?
I would try to use something that's built into the CMS, or maybe a plugin that you can kind of add in directly. So for example, if you're using WordPress, there's a really great sitemaps generator out there where anytime you make any change on your website, it automatically regenerates the sitemap file and submits that to Google and other search engines. So that's kind of something I try to build into the whole creating content flow as much as possible, that it's automated completely so that you don't have to worry about it. Doing that manually is something that I'd almost see as kind of a stopgap solution, in that you want to get started with a sitemap, but you haven't got it integrated yet completely, so you generate it manually a few times. But at some point, you're going to forget about the sitemap file. You'll forget to kind of run that program to update the sitemap file, and it becomes stale. And then it doesn't provide any value at all. So I really try to push that into something like a plugin that you can run on your server in the background, something that you don't have to worry about anymore, that once you start it, it just takes care of the sitemaps for you completely.
Okay. And the number one question I saved for the last, what is the Google's secret sauce for ranking? No, I'm just kidding.
The secret sauce. I don't know. we should get that recipe out there.
Right.
I mean, there are lots of recipe sites. I don't know. Maybe it's hidden on one of these recipe sites where you have to kind of like solve a puzzle first, and then you run across this 5-star recipe.
It's definitely going to be an AMP site.
Yeah. John Mueller dropping hints right here on Search Talk Live.
It probably wouldn't rank too high, would it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. There it is. There's the answer.
That's
I don't know.
Political correctness there.
I love it.
Okay. Well, let's see. We got about 6 minutes. If you guys want to call in, the number here is 855-722-0006. You can call in with option 1. You can call in with your questions for John or me, or actually just for John.
Yeah, just geared towards John. We'll just keep sending him his way.
Don't ask Google. Just ask me. No, I'm just kidding. No. Got any other questions?
No, I think we went through all the ones we have from our listeners. A lot of great information that we got today. That was pretty awesome. Yes.
John, thank you so much for taking the time out to be on the show. It really means a lot to us.
Yes.
And a lot to everybody because you're giving us so much good information that a lot of listeners are looking for. And,
absolutely. Answering the tough questions.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, it's really been great. I hope some of this information has helped to kind of understand a bit better where we're headed, what's happening, what to focus on, what not to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so important because there's so much information out there, and you're getting it from a third party, and it's so much better to get it from the Google,
the man himself. You get it straight from the man himself, and you know what you need to be doing. So we appreciate it.
Yeah. So everyone, I want to thank you for listening in to the show. Thank you for your support. We are on every Tuesday. And who do we got as a guest next week?
Next week, we have, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Sujan Patel. He's the co-founder of Content Marketer and Narrow.io. He is your content marketing man, growth hacking, social media marketing. He does it all. I can't wait for next week. I'm signed up for his stuff, his newsletter. He's helped me a lot in my content marketing. So got a lot of questions for him. If you got your questions, you can do the same thing as we did this week. You can go to Search Talk Live, submit your questions there. You can do it through our Twitter or Facebook at Search Talk Live, or you can email myself, Caleb at searchtalklive.com, or Robert
O'Haver, my name basically. So
at searchtalklive.com. But it's going to be an awesome show, and we're ready for Sujan to be on the show next week. So make sure you tune in. Next Tuesday, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, you can also follow us on Twitter at Search Talk Live. You can get us on iTunes, Spreaker. You can actually, if you guys have our permission, you want to embed the player on your site, you're more than welcome.
Please do.
And thank you so much for your support. I think we're going to end the show now. And
thanks again to John. We appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for your support, guys.
See everybody next week.
Yes, bye-bye.
Search Talk Live is a presentation of the Robert Palmer family of companies.